Welcome to profneel. It's a pleasure to have you here. We've paid our tributes to Jawaharlal Nehru, the man. The man and not the Prime Minister. Then after that, it was last week. It was Mahatma Gandhi. More than just the father of the nation. Lot more than just the father of the nation. So it is very obvious that we pay tribute to the third great member of that holy trinity who gifted us our freedom. Nobody else but Sardar Vallabhai Patel, the man, the myths, and the legend. But I started the question: why do we need to downgrade Nehru to appreciate and admire Sardar Patel? He has a place of his own, as does Nehru, as does Mahatma. When I think of Nehru, India as one country, as one unit, all the union of the federals, all the states in one union, I only think of one man, Sardar Vallabhai Patel. I don't think of Mahatma, I don't think of Nehru. They didn't do anything for it. It was Sardar Vallabhai Patel. If today if I have to go to Somnath temple or to Hyderabad, as an Indian, I can go on my own. I don't need any other government's permission. That is thanks to Sir Vallabhai Patel. So let's look at the man, the myths, and the legend. His role in integrating India, unifying India as one country, is in English language termed as Bismarckian. Bismarck, who integrated and unified Germany. But Sardar had a much bigger challenge, a Herculean challenge compared to Bismarck. Bismarck had what? Germany equal to say Maharashtra, size of Maharashtra, and maybe Madhya Pradesh and UP put together at the most. And that would be too much, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Look here, but Sardar had a region which was almost size of Western Europe, and he unified it into one unit, 568 princely states, and that is a Herculean challenge, a Bhaghirath Prayaas. That's what Sardar Patel did for us. The man, he bears an uncanny resemblance for me with K. Kamaraj, the former Tamil Nadu chief minister, the finest chief minister Tamil Nadu ever had. Both had these blunt Roman features. Both were very cool and composed to the point of being an iceberg. I've heard stories of when exigencies or emergencies happened and the aides ran down to Kamaraj and, sir, he would just put out his palm and his face, passive, agatam parkalam. That means, let it happen, we shall see. Likewise, I visualize a restless Nehru jumping, temperamental, and there is a Sardar who says, Jawahar, sit down, relax, we will manage this. And the man in the boy, as a young boy when he was there in his village, the only treatment to cure a boil was to use a iron rod heated on fire. So there went this young boy to this person's village, and this person's village who was heating their iron rod was not very sure of doing this to the young boy because men would shudder for the thought of this. But the young boy told this boy, listen, let's get this done fast. And he did that, and he did not even shed a tear. That's the Iron Man of India for you, Sardar Patel. He applied for, but before that, his remarkable resemblance to Kamaraj and his calm, absolute poker face, doesn't with showing no emotion, the person that he was. There's a story that once he received a telegram when he was arguing a case. He read that, put it in his coat pocket, went about the arguments, and at evening, when the trial was over, he asked the magistrate for permission to go to Bombay, I suppose, or I don't know which place, I forget which place, to say that his wife was almost on the deathbed, so he had to go. Nobody in the court had realized that the telegram was such a serious telegram. He went about his work, then he took the last train and went home. That's Sardar Patel. Law. How did he become a lawyer? He applied to England, in a university in England, to become a barrister. But the cable arrived in the name of V.J. Patel. Now, his elder brother also had applied for a course in England to be a barrister. His name was Vithalbhai Jhaveri Patel, and here was Vallabhai Jhaveri Patel. In the truest of the Indian traditions, the younger brother sacrificed his dream for his elder brother. His elder brother went. The younger brother, Vallabhai, went about earning some money, applied again, and went again. Went to England, did his barrister, became a barrister, came back, started practicing in Ahmedabad. Was one of the most wealthiest and the most successful barristers in Ahmedabad. So much so, during the day it was said he would be found in the courts. In the evening, he would be found at the oldest club, the Gujarat Club in Ahmedabad, in the old city, playing bridge. And in those times, he was dressed in suits and ties and formal Western wear. And he once termed Gandhi as a cranky old man. And he got very annoyed when Gandhi was invited to address the people at the Gujarat Club because this game of bridge was being disturbed. He was then appointed as the president of the Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation. Gandhi at that time was busy in the struggle for the indigo farmers of Champaran, and that is for he did a satyagraha there, which you all know. Gandhi was made the president of the Gujarat Sabha, and Sardar was impressed with that Gandhi satyagraha in Champaran, and Sardar, being one of the executive committee member, totally supported Gandhi in that from then on. And when Gandhi launched his struggle for the farmers in Kheda against the British Lagan, who was the second in command that Gandhi appointed as? Who else but Sardar Vallabhai Patel? He was the organizer, and that's from there he got that title of Sardar, chief, from the Mahatma. The myths. One, Nehru is responsible for partition. No. The British were responsible for partition, but Sardar Vallabhai Patel was the first one to accept it from the Indian side. The Viceroy of Mountbatten realized that there was this pragmatic and practical man, Sardar Vallabhai Patel, the Home Minister. He was the only one who could see the reality of it. Nehru couldn't see it. Nehru was absolutely against partition. He had told Mountbatten so that. So he made this offer to, apparently made this offer to Patel that, listen, let good riddance, what is that, good riddance for bad rubbish. Let them go if they want to go. You keep your people, you keep your place, you keep your country and run it the way you want to, or manage it the way you want to. A good riddance to bad rubbish sort of thing. Patel understood what Mountbatten said, and yes, I accept it. Provided one sentence, that one sentence made the difference. He says, provided, or you get me all the apples in the bag. That means all the princely states in India. And that's what Mountbatten went about, getting us all the 568 princely states for India. Myth. Second, another myth. Nehru was one who inserted Article 370. No. It was drafted by Sardar Patel, Gopal Sami Iyengar, Sheikh Abdullah for the Constituent Assembly. And when that was drafted, there was a note attached to it which said, Dear Vallabhai, please put this up to Panditji because he will only approve once you put it up. That's myth number 2 solved. And the third myth, he was denied the prime ministership by Gandhi. But in hindsight, the Mahatma thought wisely, because we needed a man at the helm who could be there for years to come, for some years, at least 10 years. We were a fledgling nation, torn apart by our bigotry and communal hatred then at the time of partition and independence. We had no resources. We needed the help of the West. We needed help from everywhere. So we were striving to be self-reliant. Yet, we needed our place in the world. and Nehru was appointed, the younger, healthier Nehru, which proved to be right because Patel passed away in 1950, 3 years after independence. We needed one man to anchor India at that time, using a typical cricketing language, one man to bat throughout to end till the innings goes on to till he puts up a good score. But Mahatma had a very significant role for Sardar as Nehru's advisor and someone to keep Nehru in check because Nehru was temperamental, reckless, rash, while Sardar was absolutely calm. So that there was like an elder person of a family who would keep the youngster in check. As the wonderful example by quoted by late Field Marshal Manekshaw, then a young colonel in 1948 when the Pakistani regulars were raiding Kashmir, Baramulla. They had already overtaken Baramulla. They were advancing to Srinagar. In that war room, there was Viceroy Mountbatten, Deputy Prime Minister and Home Minister Sardar Patel, Prime Minister Nehru, VP Menon, the Sardar's advisor, Secretary of State, who helped him integrate. There was Colonel Manekshaw, and there was General Bosher, the chief of the army. That time there was Englishman there that time. And there was Nehru, typically the Prince of Hamlet, vacillating on one foot, then another foot. Ha. What should we do? What should we do? What will the West think of us? What will the UN think of us? Etc. 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 That's when Nehru couldn't take a decision. That's where Jawahar, that's where the Mahatma had placed Sardar in that position to help Nehru take a decision. In a very assertive tone, Vallabhai Patel asked Nehru, Jawahar, do you want Kashmir? Yes. The Sardar just said one thing. Colonel, proceed. You have your orders. Have you got Kashmir? That's thanks to Sardar Patel. Patel passed away in 1950, 3 years after independence, because he was suffering from intestinal disorder, and he had a sort of heart attack. But that heart attack also was brought about by the guilt that as Deputy Home Minister, he was late that day for the prayer meeting when Gandhi was assassinated. He carried that heaviness of that guilt in his heart, and eventually it told on him. He may have lived a little more longer. The ifs and buts are there always. Ifs and buts are but if ifs and buts were pots and pans, there would be no work for the tinker. But that heaviness of guilt was, and everybody. And that particular evening he was late, otherwise he was normally on time for the prayer meeting. And as the Home Minister, he had to take up that criticism of being held responsible for Mahatma's death because he had provided security, but Mahatma, being that absolute obstinate Mahatma, he says, no, I don't want security. Along with VP Menon, Vapalla Panguni Menon, the former advisor, the former secretary to Viceroy Mountbatten, in whom Patel saw a gem of a person. Menon was from Kerala. This Gujarati and this Keralite duo worked, and they worked beautifully. Patel saw in him a man worthy to have him as a Secretary of State. From Mountbatten, he got services, and they integrated India together. Some credit also has to go to VP Menon in integrating. He went to Kashmir with all that papers for the instrument of accession, etc. He did a lot of good work. Nehru and Patel, the legends, were the finest front of the office and back of the office people that we could ever have. India was blessed to have these two sons in there at that time in the same time. We are so petty in our thinking that we make differences in between them. That they had these differences, they did this. Patel was not given his due, and Nehru did this wrong. Who are we to judge? They accepted each other. They had their differences. They played their roles beautifully. Nehru would have been unfit in that deputy prime minister role as a home minister, and so Patel would have been unfit there in the prime minister role. They both had their perfect slots. In hindsight, we should be feeling blessed that we had two of the finest sons there. The differences were issue based, reflected in the letters to each other. I'll just mention one sample. It was Sardar's letter to the PM, and the PM it says, "Dear Jawahar," and then the letter, and then the Prime Minister's reply back to him, "Dear Vallabhai." It's not Vallabh, it is "Dear Vallabhai. I have just come back from what is that 15-day tour or some tour of some of these 20 states which Nehru normally did. He just went on tour for 5 6 states or for fortnight and came back. And it's close to midnight. But I am sorry for the delay in writing to you. Hence, I'm writing to you right away. And he apologizes for the delay. That's the kind of relationship they both had. And here we are trying to play up those differences, petty-minded. Patel's contribution was second to none. He was deputy prime minister, he was the home minister, he was also the member of the Constituent Assembly for drafting the constitution. And then he integrated our country as one. What more do we want? How more would you like to respect Patel? By downgrading Nehru, no? Or by downgrading Mahatma? By saying, Mahatma should have appointed Vallabhbhai as prime minister? Today it's insulting Mahatma of all the people in the world. Nehru could travel abroad with no care in the world because there's Patel manning the home and hearth of the internal affairs and the Congress party. Remember in those days the Congress party was compiled of members who were regional satraps, who were freedom fighters. There was Rajaji, there was Kamraj, they were heavyweights. And only Patel could manage them dexterously, easily. Nehru could not. It was after 1950 when Patel passed away. Nehru became a pale shadow. If you read history, you'll know that. And Patel's courtesy in hosting the Rajputana area kings, the Diwan of Travancore, the Nawabs of Junagadh and Hyderabad, when they came to Delhi, after he had gone to each of them and threatened them to sign the instrument of accession in their own court, in their own area, in their own state. But when they came, Delhi, he was the home minister, welcoming them as beautifully as you would welcome any other dignitary. That was exemplar of Patel. He was the most gracious host ever that they could ever see in their life. If you want to know more about Patel, read our history, not the distorted one, to know how Nehru became a pale shadow after Patel's demise. Now he had to manage foreign affairs, home, hearth, and the Congress party also, which was threatening to rebel after Patel's death. They knew Nehru was not the same Nehru as he earlier was. There was no Patel. So if you want to really honor Patel, we have to honor Mahatma, Nehru, and Patel, all three in the same breath, because it was the Mahatma who decided who would be the PM and who would not be the PM. Embrace the Mahatma, Nehru, and Patel to enjoy the responsibility of being free in this country for whom they sacrificed their lives. Thank you very much.